Hey investors, Erwin here, and this week's episode is one you cannot afford to miss. My guest is Shawn Quigg, real estate and corporate lawyer and co-founder of Cardinal Law. He's the legal mind behind the scenes of some of Ontario's biggest and messiest real estate disputes. If you've ever structured a joint venture, lent privately, or raised capital, especially with friends, family, or registered funds, you'll want to hear this. We dive into why so many JVs fall apart in today's market, what a bulletproof joint venture agreement looks like, how to avoid legal disaster when raising capital, and why CMHC's MLI Select program is powerful, but dangerous if misunderstood. And if you're like me, shifting your investing focus south of the border, I'll also share how you can get started value investing in U.S. rental properties in landlord-friendly markets with professionally managed homes and cash flowing properties that don't come with all the drama we're seeing up here. Head to www.truthaboutrealestateinvesting.ca. Again, that's www.truthaboutrealestateinvesting.ca. On the right side, you'll find a free guide to investing in the US for Canadians. Want the truth about the future of investing for everyday Canadians? I've got 19,000 reasons not to invest in tenant-friendly places ever again. That's how much two of my Hamilton tenants currently owe me, $19,000 and climbing. And that's before paralegal fees. These are all costs I wouldn't face in landlord-friendly America. Please enjoy the show. Hey, Shawn, what's keeping you busy these days?
Hey, Erwin. Lots of legal work, lots of good conversations, trying to create some value and educate. We're seeing there's a real lack of good legal education as it pertains to real estate investing, corporate strategy, and really just trying to get after making your own opportunity.
Good point on the lack of legal. We're recording this in June 2025, and it's pretty rough out there. A lot of people made some a lot of difficult decisions that we were before we're recording. I don't think a lot of people made very qualified decisions. And you mentioned there's not quality legal education because people rely on social media, YouTube, and podcasts like this, where we don't necessarily have lawyers on.
Well, it's not just that. It's coaching programs, it's other social media content that's pitching, do deals, raise capital. And those things are great. Mm-hmm. But let's do it right.
Yeah, do it right.
Let's make sure we have the proverbial T's crossed and I's dotted.
Yeah.
Because everything's great. Everything's so good when a new deal's in, right? We're talking cash flow, we're talking mortgage pay down, we're talking appreciation. That's all built into the beautiful Excel spreadsheet. But when it comes down to it, things go wrong. In fact, I've never heard of a real estate project going perfectly before. Have you?
No.
So, okay, if we build in, it's tough to build in unknown problems into a spreadsheet. So how we prepare for that is to have good contracts, good structures, and to really think through what could go wrong, and then just plan for it.
Now, you work with builders, lenders, everyday investors, a lot of joint venture partnerships. What are you seeing out there?
Well, back in 2021 and 2022, it was, how quickly can you get me into this joint venture? And, joint ventures, as a quick aside, joint venture is really an umbrella term for two or more people working together. That can take the form of a joint venture agreement. It can look like a private issuance in shares in a corporation. It could look like a limited partnership, some form of shareholders agreement. Either way, if working together to make some money, that's some form of joint venture. These days, though, it's how quickly can you get me out of this joint venture? A lot of dissolutions, a lot of partnerships going wrong. And what we're seeing are people that are new clients that are coming for a solution to get out, don't have a well-structured exit or ability to exit. So it's getting difficult. When you're in a business deal with someone, if you don't have a way out, then you've got to negotiate your way out. And if that relationship's already disintegrated or is on its way down the drain, that gets infinitely harder. So the people that are coming to us now with the need to get out so they can move on and do other things, it's proving challenging.
So I'm not a lawyer, but when you tell me a new client comes to you instead of whoever provided them legal independent advice on the original on the on the agreement when they first signed it, something went wrong.
Yeah, something did go wrong. It could be that there is no contract, which is like, listen, a contract, we could do hours on what a contract is and how important it is. But what I tell people, like if we really boiled it down, a contract negotiated and signed is the cheapest insurance policy you can buy. Because what it is, a written contract is evidence of an agreement. And the words, every word matters. So, I'm all for the use of artificial intelligence and for precedents that we find on social media. That's a really good start. But every word matters. So it's not just as simple as taking a precedent and signing it, right? Every word matters. And so getting a good contract in place is a skill and an art in that sense. So if you're working with a legal professional who doesn't get real estate investing, hasn't been in it, then that might cause some of these sorts of issues to arise later.
Because if they're coming to you for problems, then the deal's likely gone sideways, I'm guessing. Has the deal ever not gone sideways before they come to you for wanting out of an agreement?
It's rare. I mean, one of the ways, sometimes decision making and expectation management are usually the two sources of disputes. Mm-hmm. Without a proper decision-making mechanism in place, you get disputes. And if you can't agree on what to do, right? If you can't adapt to changing market conditions, like say your interest rate tripled, or maybe you thought you were going to get the right to put on 20 units on this piece of land, but you can only put 10 now. I mean, that's extreme, but that would be pretty bad. That kills the deal. That definitely kills the deal. There's a lot that can go wrong, and mismanaged expectations too. Specifically when we're talking money and active partner relationships. If active partners don't manage expectations with their money partners early, then we see conflict. And each side generally has an inflated sense of their own importance. Really, it is a partnership. It's not like, hey, I'm the money and you're just coming along to do the deal, or hey, I know how to do everything and you're just the money. Like, it's not ever that. It's usually closer to the middle, right? And if you've read Stefan's book, Money, People, Deal, shout out to the late Stefan Arnio, then you understand that each of those components is weighted in a deal. So what we're seeing are issues like that come up where mismanaged expectations, money partner, active partner, not on the same page, can't get on the same page, and someone's trying to flex to get out of the deal.
Mm-hmm. Before I hit the record button the second time, I was even mentioning to you how I feel some of these deals were structured improperly. For example, I invest some my register funds in some development projects, but they're all equity. Mm-hmm. All my investments for shares, equity shares. There is no cash distribution until there are events of like sale, and it's pretty much an all equity, all cash deal. The investment alone, the only debt, for example, is like the construction loan. And for those who, for the best listeners' benefit, if you're not familiar with how development works, is most commonly here in Ontario at least, for a builder developer to get a construction loan, they have to sell out 50% of a subdivision of houses, typically, before they can get some mortgage money to fund the construction. If they're building a high-rise condominium, usually around 90%. They have to sell out 90% before they get construction financing. So the deals that I'm used to investing in, that's the only debt, is the construction financing. The rest is all cash, so that if anything terrible happens, like interest rates double, triple, whatever, your expenses are minimal. Like
just like property tax, basically, maybe some small utilities, but that's it, right? That's what I'm used to. But then we saw, I don't know when it started, but somewhere around like 2018, 2019, all these developers, generally small developers and generally newer, were raising capital via debt. Like they're private borrowing for like 6 to 8 to 12% or even 17%. And they're paying out like almost monthly or whatever. And then my comment was, I think it's a poor structure if you're a developer, or you're doing complicated, large scale, like burrs, because like if you're doing regular burrs, that's kind of like developing, right? Like you're doing invasive renovations.
Yeah.
You got permits that you're reliant on. Like we said, renovations never go on time, on budget.
Never.
And so if the expectation is you're not going to be on time, on budget, and you're paying out every month cash when you should be hoarding cash to cover those development charges and construction costs, like I think it's a poor fit. And I'm guessing a lot of the people coming to you for wanting to break up from the agreements are for debt related agreements.
Yeah, debt's a really big component of it. And there's hours of content we could do on just this question alone. But, I think what it really comes down to is the cost of equity is very high.
Oh, yeah.
Right? The cost of equity is very high.
As it should be.
And as interest rates fell in the late 2010s into the early 2020s, the cost of debt became so attractive compared to the cost of equity. But what was missing from the equation was what happens when it flips back. And as projects were taking longer, right? We know that our municipal partners on the government side are behind us, the private sector people in terms of where we want to take development and how we want to get housing to Ontarians. Those projects were taking longer and the cost of debt was starting to accumulate. And if you don't have enough equity or you haven't raised enough debt to cover yourself past your initial projected timeline, then you start to run into problems. And you're right, doing large-scale burr projects or buying up houses in an entire community and renovating them all is very similar to a development project. So I'm with you. Like, I like the equity side. But as an equity investor, you got to understand your upside's bigger, but your downside is also much bigger.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So my social media is full of ads for like 20% projected returns, and they're not really forthcoming about what the investment is. So I had to do a little digging, but typically they're developments. They're not like apartment buildings that are existing, or real estate that's existing. But yeah, because and the projected return should be higher because it's a higher expected risk.
Yep.
But again, I have equity. If I'm an equity investor, I've also made more than the projected returns because I've risked more. But again, like I've known people who made no money in those as well. But that's the risk with equity. But the benefit to the active partner is they're not paying out monthly cash flow.
Yeah.
While they're burning cash themselves in the business.
Yeah, it's almost penny wise, pound foolish in that sense where, yes, the cost of equity is high, but man, isn't it nice to not have a huge debt service to be tackling every month or every quarter when your project is just sitting there, especially today when you can't sell anything. Really tough to sell anything, especially in Toronto, where how many condos are on the market? 10,000?
Yeah, last I heard is over 12 months supply.
Yeah.
I don't know what the exact number is these days, but yeah, it's wild.
Yeah. So I agree. I like the equity model. Whether if you're investing in a limited partnership where you're getting units, or you're doing a private issuance in a corporation, or even if you're buying into a private or a public REIT where you're getting mutual fund trust units, I like all of that. And what I like to see is legitimacy. And if we can plot joint ventures on a scale of legitimacy all the way from Prom note, which is a very basic form of joint venture, to a very basic 1 or 2 page term sheet joint venture type arrangement, to a joint venture agreement, to a private issuance, to limited partnerships, to private and then public REITs. The more serious your project is and the more serious you are, the more serious of a structure you should be looking for, which sounds simple. But I'll tell you, like I got people talking to me or trying to raise several $1 million with a joint venture agreement, which is like bad news.
Yeah. Again, I wonder what kind of independent legal advice people are getting on these things.
Well, from the investor side, it's tough to imagine anyone getting independent legal advice that says this is a good idea. But in fairness, it is not a lawyer's job to tell you that this is a good project or this is a good idea or not. Our job is to let you, the business owner or the business person, decide what to do. But you must understand the risks and rewards that go into each option.
Mm-hmm. I think it's the challenge as well, because we all say like do your own due diligence. I think that means different things to different people. And
yeah, what is due diligence? I ask people that often.
Yeah.
It's a phrase. It's a fancy phrase, but a lot of people have no clue what it means.
So I'll just share with a quick story, like that gentleman that we were talking about earlier, who part of that group that bought hundreds of houses in the communities up north. I made one phone call to someone I knew that was on his team that was on the tools. And then I immediately knew this was a problem.
Wow.
One phone call, that's all I needed.
Wow. Right? That's due diligence.
But again, like that's, if you're going to invest money with someone, and I'm not investing, I'm just like I'm just seeing all this news, like, holy cow, I don't even know this person. And then I saw a name pop up, and like, well, I know them, right? And so one phone call.
Yeah.
And then I was quickly learned that, lots of red flags, right? From someone on the inside, right? If someone on the inside knows red flags, then like,
that's the end for me.
Yeah. I've said it many times on the show, and because there's so many good people in real estate, all I need is one red flag, and like we can still be friends. We'll just never do business together.
Yeah, which are separate things.
Yeah. But yeah. So like, what percentage of these clients having problems are in the private lending space, private borrowing space versus equity investors?
I would say most of our problems that we're dealing with now are equity based. Mm-hmm. Private lending has a remedy built in, both typically into the lending contract and also under the Mortgage Act, power sale, right? And anyone listening, there's technically two mortgage remedies in Ontario, and usually, pretty sure across the entire country. Power of sale and foreclosure. Foreclosure is really it's got a limited use because of how long it takes to get through the courts for us. But power of sale, we're helping private lenders with power of sale. Right. It's one of my least favorite things to do. I'll do it, but I know something went wrong here, and I know lots of people are very uncomfortable. So I'm uncomfortable naturally, because I feel for the lender. I also feel for the borrower. Like, not everyone is malicious when money goes missing, right? Or is lost. Not goes missing, is lost. Mm-hmm. Sometimes things just don't work out, and that happens in business. So I feel for all of the parties, but in the end, you take, as a lender, you take the lower return in exchange for the security and the remedy that's built into the legislation. Mm-hmm. So we just take it on and get it done. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We just had a guest, Adam Neiman, on, who had to take back properties. Thankfully, none of them were rentals, though. So changing the locks was quite easy.
Yeah.
Quote unquote quite easy, but I think almost all the properties were 2-hour drives.
Right. Yeah.
So it was work.
That's still easier than dealing with tenants. Actually, one really interesting piece, I'm not sure we know what the answer is yet. But if you are a lender and you take back a property in a jurisdiction where there is landlord licensing, all of a sudden you're a landlord with no license, which is a potentially big problem.
Because the license only belongs to the
owner, but the
owner, the named person, who may no longer be the owner.
Well, or who no longer has possession.
Oh shit! This is the first I've heard this.
Yeah, so I've seen it come up. I don't know what the courts are going to say about it. Because if a city could theoretically go, oh, you're a landlord without a license, and then use the remedies built in, which could potentially involve the sale of the house.
Right.
Crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a new one. Because the lease transfers with the new owner, say the borrower who takes over the property, title transfers, right?
Well, it depends where you are in the power of sale process.
Okay.
If you're the lender and you take possession, you don't have title, but you do have possession, meaning you're the one calling the shots. You've effectively locked out the owner.
Right.
They're an owner in title only because now you've been granted this power to sell this property. Once it's sold, right? If the lender gets it listed, gets it sold, then the new buyer obviously needs to get their own license.
Yeah.
But it's that period of time between the taking of possession in the power of sale process to the time the power of sale ends,
right.
Whether it's like by the original owner has redeemed the mortgage or that lender has sold the property. It's that period of time where, as a lender, you've got to be particularly aware of what the various jurisdictions you're in and what could happen with the licensing piece.
We're talking about good education. I think we're covering some of it. You mentioned taking possession as the borrower. At what point do you assume the tenants then?
As the lender.
As a lender?
Yeah, as the lender. Right away, as soon as you take possession.
Right.
So there's there is a legal mechanism for this. It's an order, and you get possession. All of a sudden, you change the locks. Now you probably, as a lender, you're not managing the property yourself. You're hiring a property management company. That all gets tacked on to the payout statement once the power of sale process is coming to a conclusion. And so the property manager will start to manage the property. We've got a client now who's in the midst. He's a borrower. Project did not go as expected. Is trying to sell it, but in the midst of a power sale as well. The lender has locked him out and won't let him rent out the 2 vacant units to try and
stem the cash flow.
Yeah.
Stem the bleed.
And exactly, which is making it even a bad situation even worse.
That's bad.
Yeah. Lender doesn't care. Lender's got a bunch of personal guarantors and there's enough equity in the property that the lender's going to be fine.
Ouch.
Very ouch.
Were these friends too before?
No, this is an institutional lender.
Oh.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. But that's business. So what we've got to do is effectively stave off the power of sale long enough for the real sale to close so that the power of sale close can't take the property before the new owner can take it. So we're seeing some success there, but it's definitely a challenge.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't even know what to say. Yeah, we're here. Hey,
Yeah.
The show's called Truth About Real Estate Investing. This
That's
is what it
right.
really looks like when things go sideways.
It's not all cash flow and vacations and fun. Things can go very wrong very quickly. So you've got to have a good power team. You've got to have a good realtor who can get on and get a property sold. Luckily, this particular client has a good realtor who got it sold. Very good. Got to have a good lawyer to fend off the lender. We had another file recently where we fended off power of sale for 11 months and bought our guy enough time to get out. And now that 10 unit is going to become 15 or 16 units and be a very profitable project.
Oh,
yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's a win.
That's a very big win. In a time where there's not a ton of wins going around, huge win. Craziest file of my career, no doubt.
What are some of the lessons here?
Oh,
how's that for a broad
time?
question?
Yeah. Plan early. Everyone knows we need car insurance for our car, home insurance for our home. A contract is deal insurance because what a good contract does is it anticipates anything that could happen and has a roadmap for how to deal with it. Once you have a roadmap and it's in writing, there's no negotiating anymore. So if you and I are in a deal together and all of a sudden something goes wrong and maybe you and I have a falling out, well, we signed this deal when times were good. So now we follow the roadmap and there's no arguing.
Right.
There's no legitimate argument there. So get a contract. The lesson is get a contract done. Whether it's a shareholders agreement, we have clients that are a decently sized private lender. They started this great company. It's doing very well. They don't have a shareholders agreement.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I looked at them. I was like, what are you guys doing? That's so important because lending, as we've seen, can really go down quick, right? Can go bad. So they're going to get taken care of. But get a contract done. If you're in a deal with anybody, get a contract done. It's really cheap insurance because dispute resolution is tens of thousands of dollars. Sometimes
A month?
hundreds. Yeah, whereas a contract's, a couple $1,000.
One-time fee. Yeah.
One time. Yeah.
Unlike most insurance, it's recurring. Here we're
That's
talking
right.
about one time.
Yeah.
Right. I have a lot of friends, and we talk about prenups. it's more about giving them advice. But I always heard the term design the divorce up front. No different here.
Yeah.
Design the divorce of this agreement.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
I tell people this. A contract doesn't matter until it does. We all know the basic terms. You get 50%, I get 50%. I'm going to report quarterly to you on cash flow, right? This is the project plan. We know that going in. But what happens if I die? What happens if if we don't get the building permit we're looking for, or we discover that all of the electrical and all the plumbing needs to be replaced in this fourplex we bought, which is a huge expense that we didn't plan for? What happens? If you don't have those conversations early, it leads to problems. That's why we have the conversation, we figure out what the plan is, and we put it in writing.
Yeah.
Then we know. It's simple.
Yeah, I have some friends in joint venture partnerships, and there's cash calls,
Mm-hmm.
especially in this market. There's cash calls, and then there's arguments on who covers, but that should all be in the agreement.
That's right. Yeah. One thing we tell people as well is a contract's great, but if everyone agrees that something else should be the way, then just do an amendment. Quick amendment. Or a little really anything that evidences that everyone's in agreement to a change. A text conversations, group chats are used in court as evidence of a meeting of the minds, which is like the most important. That's what makes a contract, is a meeting of the minds.
Will that be upheld in court?
A group text?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. If you say, I was reading a case from another jurisdiction, or a snippet of it, and it was a text conversation about where the guy said, "Did I get the job?" and the other guy said yes. That's good evidence.
Yeah, I remember
acceptance.
hearing about that pretty recently.
Yeah. That's a meeting of the minds.
I've always said words are power, and I've been made fun of before because I sometimes pause because I need to settle my thoughts before I respond to anybody. I'm one of those slow people.
Well, being thoughtful is not slow. Being thoughtful is being measured and understanding that what you say does matter.
Yeah. This is all being recorded and transcribed, blasted
right.
all over the web.
Yeah.
Now, joint ventures, they're still a popular way, and I think they'll always be a popular way for investors to pool resources. What are the essential legal components of a robust Canadian real estate joint venture agreement? What are the common pitfalls or disagreements you see arise in JVs that could be avoided with proper legal structuring?
A lot of it's really basic in sort of our understanding of what it is. Roles and responsibilities, big one. Who the parties are. How the money's going to work. Who's putting money in. Who's not putting money in. Or if we need money, who's putting in what percentage. What happens if we need more money than we expect? What happens if we need more money than we expect and no one's got any money? What do we do then?
Oh, crap.
Well, it's theoretically possible. Money don't grow on trees. And if you're the money partner, let's say, and you're out of money and it's 6 months later and we have I have a cash call because something unexpected happened. Well, what do? Am I going to declare you in breach of contract and take you to court? Sure, but that doesn't solve our problem. So let's have a plan for what happens. Well, we raise debt, and you might be responsible for a higher percentage of that debt because you didn't have the money as a money partner. But that's all put into the agreement, right? So at least our progress is not stalled simply because you ran out of money, right? We have a method of dealing with it
in the agreement.
In the agreement,
Yeah.
We have expectations in terms of reporting, right? If I'm the active partner, what, and how often am I reporting to you? That's financial performance. That could be an annual operating plan. Now, if you've bought a house, converted it to a duplex, refinanced into stable financing, and you have 2 tenants in, I don't know that an operating plan is all that helpful because it kind of is what it is. It's not a business in that sense, but having forecasting whether how your appliances are doing, how your major HVAC systems are doing, whether you anticipate any needs there, might be a good thing to put into a project plan. But otherwise, reporting. Dispute resolution. If we have a dispute over what to do, how are we going to solve it? Also, decision-making power. Usually, I think active partners should be vested with a base level of ability to make decisions. But there is a threshold at which we've got to bring in the money partner. A money partner, a passive investor, invests not to do the work, but to make money with their money. So day-to-day things like what color to paint the walls shouldn't really be a money partner conversation. But hey, a tree fell on our house. That's a money partner conversation, right? Insurance claim, deductible, that sort of thing.
Right. So it'd be like a dollar threshold? Or?
Yeah, usually I set a dollar threshold because that's the only objective way to really do it.
Yeah.
It's really tough to say, well, CapEx decisions are money partner conversations, but current expense are not, because even what one considers CapEx versus current can vary depending on how well educated you are in financial accounting, and sometimes things just happen, right? Is tenant turnover a CapEx, like painting a room or refreshing a vanity? Could be, might be, but it also might be a current expense. So setting a dollar threshold, I think, puts the active partner in a position to have clear guidelines. So it's not about how we characterize an expense, it's how valuable it is. That gives a good, clear idea for everybody about what to expect.
That's a really good idea. Because with my own property manager, my threshold is like $300. If it's under $300, it makes my client happy. Don't even ask me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm interested. Yeah, I'm curious. My mind's just spinning now. Where would this go with JVs, for example? Like say for example, an extended vacancy period, like over 3 months.
Yeah,
I think that'd be a good time. That should be a trigger to let the running partner know.
Yeah, because it's one thing to have 1 or 2 months of vacancy, especially now, and especially in this particular jurisdiction where picking the right tenant has never been more important. That would be a great thing to have set as a threshold.
Yeah, and I think people need to have these discussions as well before they enter these agreements.
We would call that a material adverse change in legalese, and having a material adverse change clause that says if there's a material adverse change, you've got to talk to the money partner is very beneficial for everybody. Because I always like to say, like, 2 minds are better than one. So if we've got a problem and 2 people are trying to solve it instead of 1, great idea.
Now, CMHC MLI Select is a really popular topic these days, and it's an interesting thing that this is such a popular strategy. I think partly because we're in Ontario, and our more populated provinces, Quebec and BC, are also very tenant friendly.
Mm-hmm.
I think part of the reason why CMHC MLI Select is so popular is for developers is they don't really want tenants. Anyways, so your practice includes securing financing and specific to CMHC MLI Select deals For our Canadian listeners, can you explain what that is, who it's designed for, and what are the legal considerations and benefits for investors looking to utilize the CMHC MLI Select program?
Yeah. CMHC MLI Select is an insured lending program that's sponsored by the federal government. And it's got some really attractive benefits that help projects pencil in. Lower interest rates, longer amortizations, and other factors. And, we shouldn't forget MLI Select's history. Like, it used to be a tool for big developers to get more housing to market, more purpose-built rentals. But then its popularity blew up because of how attractive the product is. And so now everybody is looking for MLI Select financing because it helps with cash flow. It helps. Well, I mean, that's the big reason is it helps with cash flow.
Yeah,
because
including less money out less capital investment from yourself.
That's
from
right.
The investor. Yeah.
So your cash on cash returns better, and your monthly profit in the bank is higher, which is great. I mean, we can all agree that's great. I work with a number of mortgage brokers that help with MLI Select financing, and so we form sort of a tandem. I'm sort of at the, if we were to use a baseball analogy, I'd be the closer, whereas the mortgage broker would be the starter. The mortgage broker's job is so vital. It's so pivotal. And anyone who's brokering MLI Select deals, they are earning their commission because it is hard work. And CMHC changes the rules every month. And, you could be working on a project that takes months to get to CMHC and then have the rules change and everything's different, right? Where the legal piece comes in is the lending's different. It's more complex. There are more documents. It's more than just a certificate of insurance for me. Lawyers for lenders that are lending through MLI Select and that program expect more. And as a result, I've got to coach clients early, or our firm has to coach clients early to get their stuff lined up. That means you're probably investing in a corporation. Do you have a minute book? You'd be surprised how many people don't have minute books or even know what that is or their importance. Is it up to date? Right? You might have incorporated 4 years ago and then never touched it again. Right? Most people don't know that in Ontario, you have to file 2 returns as a corporation every year. One we know about, tax return. But a lot of people don't know about the corporate return. The corporate return, if it's not filed, puts you in breach of the Business Corporations Act and one other piece of legislation, and sets the province up to dissolve your company without notice to you. Terrible. Yeah. Hundreds of corporations get dissolved every month. I get a notice. And I can't put this content out enough. Here's the worst part. Look up what happens if you own real estate in a corporate name and your corporation gets dissolved. You don't own it anymore. The province does. So, bad news. If you have a corporation and you haven't filed an annual legal return, a corporate return, and you haven't updated your minute book, please reach out to me. I will help you solve that. But you can, to lose your property to the province because you didn't file a return, bonkers. But it can happen.
How can folks reach you?
Best way, LinkedIn, Instagram, email, Shawn@cardinallaw.ca. We do corporate structure reviews to help people understand where they're not compliant and then create an action plan to get them to clients so they can sleep easy and not have to worry about this.
The pre-question I should have asked is when to call a lawyer. At what stage of a real estate deal or investment journey should a Canadian investor or builder absolutely bring in a lawyer like yourself? Are there specific triggers or thresholds?
No. I like to work with people who are in the relationship business. I like to establish relationships early. I'm not a transactional person. So we start early. I'm not running the clock to have a conversation. Let's get to know each other. Let's figure out what your objectives are. Why, if you're new, why you're getting into real estate. If you're not new, why you're looking to make a change for this position on the power team. Then let's get you up to date, right? I mentioned that corporate structure review. We do that for basically anybody who's coming in that's done a few deals, maybe has a couple corps, because no one knows that this is a ticking time bomb just waiting to get them. So we get them solved, and then they're ready to do business in a serious manner. We have a client, he's done a ton of deals. He had a crazy structure, no strategy to it at all, just existed. So it's been, I mean, he's a bit of an anomaly. It's been like 12 to 15 months of condensing, simplifying, bringing up to date. But now he's buying way more. His ability to get financing, to look legitimate to lenders, unmatched now.
So you're a real estate investor yourself, and I know you've had your own challenges, and you've seen lots of people have their own challenges. But on the positive and the future looking forward, where do you see opportunity? Where are you seeing investors bring you deals that you think have a high probability of success?
I'm still very bullish on multifamily.
What province?
I still like Ontario. I really like purpose-built rentals, like new construction. You know, you get to skip some of the rules, but I really like to see the creative and ingenuity that comes with trying to fit a purpose-built rental into our current regulatory framework, both at the municipal and the provincial level. You know, we've had paternalistic government oversight for a long time in our industry, and it was particularly bad for the last decade. So I went to the Missing Middle Summit a month ago, and we had a Toronto City Councillor there, Brad Bradford, who talked about what the City of Toronto's doing to open up the ability to create more housing where before it was not possible. There's so much room. So I'm really bullish on new purpose-built rental construction. It's tough to make the numbers work in Toronto. They would probably need to take the municipal land transfer tax out to really get things to work. Although there is a strategy if you've got a buyer who's willing to play ball, there is a strategy to avoid land transfer tax. That I'm not going to talk about on the air. It is completely legal, but it is complex.
Maybe a joint venture agreement with the seller.
Yes, actually, it's very similar to that. But if anyone has any questions about that, just reach out to me. We can have a chat, and I'll walk you through the Income Tax Act and the Land Transfer Tax Act, where they work together on that. Anyways, so I'm bullish on that. I am still, I like, it is a buyer's market. It's just that no one's buying. There's opportunity out there. I saw a post on LinkedIn this morning about how the people that say there are no deals are just not looking in the right spots or in the right way. So I think there's tons of opportunity out there. I think probably the biggest factor that's holding that opportunity back is capital. We watched how many billions of dollars evaporate in equity and value in the last 4 years? Tons. 2 years. So there's a lot of money that doesn't exist anymore. So I think that's a big roadblock. But people are smart, and there's still tons of dough out there, especially if you can get access to registered funds. But with great power comes great responsibility. As you know, you invest registered funds. So if you are a proponent of a project that can take registered funds, like, you've got a big responsibility. That's people's retirement.
Right, and then, like you mentioned earlier, the more complex the project, the higher level structure and all sorts of things.
Yeah.
So I think the hurdle would be like mutual fund trust, I believe.
Mutual fund trust is kind of the top.
Oh, the top. Okay.
Yeah, mutual fund trust is one of the most complex and legitimate structures in the country. It's complex. It is costly. There are a ton of rules. You got to have, I think it's 150 subscribers in 1 year. Otherwise, everyone loses the tax benefit and then gets a tax consequence. Yeah, it's really tough.
Subscribers meaning you get that many investors.
Yeah,
Individual.
they could be $5 each, but
Oh
you
my
need to
God,
have
but the client management of $5.
yeah, but you need 100. So, like I know a little bit about the tax consequence, but in essence, what happens is if you invest your registered funds, it doesn't count as a withdrawal. It's an investment, unless that mutual fund trust does not get 150 subscribers within, I think, the 12-month period. In which case, it is then treated as a withdrawal of the RSP money, which means you pay tax on it.
So make sure if you're going to invest in one of these things, you better make sure they
got 150 people that are also going to invest. I've had clients reach out to me and say, "Hey, would you put $1,000 into this? I'll give you the 1,000." Just to get their numbers up. I said no. Thanks, but no.
So then what is the easier path to be able to accept registered funds? I don't know if that's the right question, but
yeah,
I'm just trying to give people a buffet of options for.
You got to work with an exempt market dealer. If we talked about paternalistic government. This is one area, and rightly so. Like, not everyone who's got an RSP is sophisticated enough to be able to look at a project plan and look at a pro forma and say this is a good project or not. I would argue that most of the country could not do that.
I'd agree. Yeah.
Right. So,
we mentioned, like you talked about earlier, all this equity disappeared.
Yeah.
In the last few years.
That's right. Now, even if you go through an exempt market dealer, that does it, which is basically an equity broker and a person in the middle who's designed to make sure that unscrupulous developers are not taking the money of the unsophisticated. Right. So that's that layer in between. So if you want to take registered funds in a project, you've got to work with an exempt market dealer, probably through a limited partnership, maybe a private issuance, but I don't think that you can actually put registered funds into a private issuance. That's a complex tax question for another day. But probably the limited partnership would be the way to go. And that allows you to skip a lot of the other rules that govern the types of people that can invest in limited partnerships. Your accredited investors, your friends, family, and business associates. By the way, if you're using that exemption, you better make sure they are family, friends, and legitimate business associates. You can't just meet someone on Facebook and call them a friend. That doesn't work. So if you don't have an exempt market dealer, you've got to work with accredited investors, et cetera. If you do have an EMD, then they can help you get retail capital like registered funds.
And it's not exactly easy to get on the shelf of an exempt market dealer.
Well, no.
They usually vet you quite seriously.
There's hundreds of projects out there.
Yeah.
And
they take a handful.
Yeah. Well, I mean, fair enough. They're doing a tough job.
Oh, yeah.
But
raising capital is a tough job.
It's a very tough job. And in the end, I like to remind people of this. Money is a commodity. Your $5 bill is worth the same as mine. So you've got to have projects. You're basically competing on risk. So you've got to have a good project. Otherwise, an EMD is not going to be able to sell your project.
What haven't we covered yet? Let's talk about Cardinal Law. What else do you guys do at Cardinal Law?
We are a law firm for real estate investors. Our primary objective is actually our core focus. Anyone who knows the Entrepreneur's Operating System, EOS, knows you have a core focus. Our core focus is helping people build wealth through real estate. It's very simple. And what that means is we help people first get set up to acquire. And setting up means setting up a corporate structure that makes sense given your circumstances now. If you're a brand new investor and you're buying a single family home with the $50,000 you saved up from your employment, probably doesn't make sense to have a 3-tier corporate structure. You will spend more in accounting and legal fees than you will make in cash flow. And what is the point of that? Right? So it starts with making sure you've got the right setup. I mentioned that larger client before. That person had 15 or 20 corps, has less now, has consolidated and simplified. Now lending is a lot easier, showing the books is a lot easier to investors, etc. Okay, So we start there. Then we start with the strategy piece. Okay, where are you going? And where is this structure going to go with you? How is it going to go with you? So we'll sort of map that out. We don't do anything. We're not running a clock. This isn't about this. This is about, here's what you need to be prepared for. So if you want to do this, you probably need to consider having revenues of X, let's say, to make the cost of maintenance, both from a tax and a legal standpoint, a cost that is actually manageable within that type of project. Then it's acquire, help you figure out where to stick your assets in your corporate structure, perhaps when to dispose of them. Secured financing typically follows, right? So whether it's private lending or institutional lending or in between a MIC, B lender of some kind, that might sound like that's what any lawyer does, but what I've come to learn is that there's a big difference between a TD mortgage on a single family home and a MIC lending on a 10-unit building. Big difference. There's a lot more documents and a lot more to understand. And that's typically where we see people graduate from their residential real estate lawyer. Shout out to residential real estate lawyers. That's a tough job. There's a lot going on there. But there's a very clear line between what someone who does residential real estate does all day and what someone who does commercial or multifamily type real estate. And that's where we see the shift typically, is when you get into those types of deals that outpace what that lawyer and firm would see on a regular basis. So we're talking acquiring, disposing, refinancing, financing. Raising capital is an important piece. It's got to be done right. So that means getting contracts done, getting subscription agreements done, getting money into trust where it sits until everything's signed, then it moves. It also involves estate planning. What is we always talk about generational wealth in real estate, right? But what does that mean? That means the ability to pass wealth to the next generation, which requires an estate plan. Otherwise, you just hand it all over to Uncle Carney when you die. And I don't know if you know this, but the death rate in Canada is 1 out of every 1 person dies. We just don't know when. So we got to plan for it. And no one likes to, contemplate their own demise. But if you're a smart business person, you need to succession plan. And so we gently introduce the idea of succession planning and estate planning to real estate investors, and then help them map it out using tools of the wealthy, even if you might not be, because tools of the wealthy are also tools for the non-wealthy if they need it. So that's an overview. We also work a lot with private lenders. We have a whole private lending department. Once you make a bunch of money and you want to lend it out into mortgages, we take care of that.
Can you elaborate how you take care of it on the legal standpoint, or are you brokering type, or
no?
How do you describe it?
We I would say our sort of unique in the private lending space is we've acted so much for borrowers. We now know how to act really great for a lender, protect them to the max they need, but also get a deal done quickly. Because in private lending, speed matters. And what we found, and if you're a private lender, consider whether this is happening for you. Private lenders go out, they eschew the benefits of private lending. I've got capital, I can do it quick. I don't need 100 forms. I don't need you to jump through all these hoops. I'm going to look at your deal. I like your deal. Okay, let's move. You need money tomorrow? Let's do it. Then that lender hires a lawyer, because you need your own lawyer in Ontario when you're a private lender over $75,000, and that lawyer acts like a person not interested in speed, or only cares about security for the lender, and that's it. Now, I'm not saying that security is not important, but you can be secure and do a quick deal at the same time. Those are not mutually exclusive things. So what we've done is we've designed a process that maxes protection and minimizes documentation. We can also produce our documents in minutes. We built the system to be able to have all of the right components in, but produce quickly so that we can get those instructions over to the borrower's lawyer, and so that speed now becomes a borrower issue, not a lender issue.
For the listeners' benefit, can you give an example of some private lends and then is Cardinal Law doing any sort of filtering on the quality of deal or the quality of lenders and whatnot?
No, it's not really for us to filter on quality of deal. In fact, as a private lender, you've got to sign a form for every deal in Ontario, no matter what lawyer you work with, that says that I understand my lawyer's not giving me business advice. And that's not really truly the job of a lawyer. That would be the job of a mortgage broker.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Right? Yeah. To say this is a good deal or this is not a good deal. This is this is the underwriting, and it is what it is. You decide whether you want to invest in this or not.
Got it. So are you working with mortgage brokers for sourcing deals?
Yeah,
I see.
tons.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. So we do a lot of Olympia Trust mortgages. Olympia Trust is I don't want to call it a beast of its own, but it is definitely a niche area of private lending. Olympia Trust is a trust company that administers registered funds that people can self-direct, right? So you can self-direct your RSP to invest into a mortgage, either entirely or syndicated with others. And so we have a really great working relationship with Olympia Trust, which creates speed that others that don't have that type of relationship won't have. So we do a lot of Olympia Trust private lending. We also act for a couple of MICs and other sort of not institutional lenders, but lenders with some money. Think MIE, Mortgage Investment Entity. Could be a corp, could be any number of things. But we're there, they've got a deal, they get us the commitment, or they don't even have a commitment. We'll draft the commitment, get it to them. They sign off with the client, comes back to us, produce the documents over to the borrower's lawyer. One thing we've done is created a relationship with an independent lawyer who knows all of our stuff. So now we have an ecosystem for speed, because this lawyer now makes sure that there's no changes to the documents. He's already read them, understands them completely, so we can get a deal done in hours as opposed to days or weeks.
What are borrowers borrowing these days that are coming across your desk?
In terms of what types of products?
Yeah, are these is it apartment building renovation? Is it someone needs a second on their home for some renovations?
No. We're seeing a lot of debt consolidation. A lot of it. And debt consolidation is good in one sense, but if you're debt consolidating with a private lender, something's not going right. So we're seeing a lot of that. Basically trying to tread water. Investors trying to tread water until their project finishes or interest rates go down. If you got into a deal that was dependent on 2% and now you're at 5%, that's tough. So seeing a lot of debt consolidation, seeing some construction, but not as much as a couple of years ago. It really seems like construction's kind of grinding to a halt. It's tough to make, sellers are still in 2021 pricing world, so it's tough to get a deal, at least on market. And municipalities have varying degrees of workability. Right? So some municipalities are great to work with, some not so much. So if you've got a project in a municipality where that local government's not a partner to developers, is not trying to promote housing, or in the municipality where I live says they want to create housing, but does everything to the opposite, that drags projects out, and that makes construction financing less attractive. You don't really want to get into it until you're shovel ready.
Sorry, I'm really curious about the private lending stuff.
Yeah.
Because I know a lot of people are looking for passive opportunities. So what are the terms for, say, a vanilla everyday debt consolidation? What kind of terms is the borrower offering, or what can the lender expect?
I mean, the sweet spot right now is 12%. Sometimes there's a point sometimes not. The points usually go to the administrator and the broker. I'm not seeing a lot of lender points right now. It seems people want their capital to not sit still. So they're getting into things that are decent opportunities, not too risky. But even still, I'm still seeing largely 12%. One of our biggest referral sources can sell out a mortgage opportunity at 12% in minutes. But at 11%, hours, days. It's very interesting.
And then what would the terms be on a 12%? Would that be a balloon payment at the end, or
No,
is it monthly?
Monthly interest.
1% monthly.
Yeah, 1 year term.
And the security for the borrower?
Mortgage.
Sorry, security
For the lender.
borrower.
Yeah, for lender. Mortgage.
Second position. Third,
Yeah,
first?
a lot of seconds. So second position mortgage, an assignment of rents, which is a tool that if you don't pay your mortgage, your lender can go collect rent to partially satisfy the missed mortgage payment. It's also helpful in the power of sale process. Sometimes we're seeing a GSA, a general security agreement, which is security over all of the personal property of the borrower. We see this more on investors who might take the mortgage money and buy, say, tools or equipment, or put it into materials that then don't get installed, right? So the GSA gives the lender security over all of those things, plus like appliances, certain appliances, sometimes vehicles, right? So it's an extra form of collateral security. Sometimes we'll see share pledges. So that's a little more of a creative piece where the borrower pledges their shares in the corp that's doing the project.
Sounds like quite a bit of security for the
yeah,
lender.
Yeah, we're actually giving a talk. My partner Milena and I are giving a talk this upcoming weekend in Ottawa about lender security, and we're using the analogy of an onion. So there's a ton of layers to security that a private lender can have, and as a lender who wants to make money and do business, it may not be the right approach to think I need 100% max security, everything you can possibly give me on every single deal, right? That makes a lot of sense on a multi-million-dollar deal, but not as much on a $50,000 deal. So we're using the analogy of the onion to say, or to show that you can have really good security without having every layer, which also decreases complexity, increases speed.
Fascinating. I think this has been an educational episode.
I've had some fun.
We're running out of time. You've been very generous. What else could we educate the listener on that we haven't covered already? You want to share?
It's really tough out there. So rely on your power team. Find a good power team, a relationship-driven power team, and rely on them because they know stuff and they'll point you in the right direction. And we've all succeeded and failed in this business. I have failed more than I've succeeded in real estate investing. I have made a ton of mistakes. I've learned a ton of things, but I've learned a lot from talking to others who are more experienced, including people who are on my power team. And so don't be afraid to reach out, right? It's the same if a client reaches out to you with a question, I know you're going to answer it. You've been through it. They're a client. You're not running a clock. Neither am I. I'm there for a relationship, and relationships are not created by turning on a clock, so I don't do that. And most of the people that I work with, accountants, realtors, mortgage brokers, they don't do that either.
Yeah, because we still wear the hat of coach, which I believe has been abused. But
It has been.
Yeah, it's been abused badly.
Yeah.
A lot of them aren't around anymore. But all right, anything else we should cover? One more time, where can people get a hold of you?
Well, definitely on LinkedIn. You can see it on screen here. You can find me on Instagram, on Facebook. You can find me at my email, Shawn@cardinallaw.ca.
All right, this is a question from AI.
Okay.
Key takeaways for listeners. If Canadian listeners could take away just one or two critical legal pieces of advice for the real estate investing journey, what would they be?
Relationships with your partners, not your power team. Your partners are great, but get it in writing. Get it in writing. it will make all the world of a difference later on when something inevitably goes wrong. And no matter how skilled you are, something's going wrong.
Anyone tells you nothing goes wrong, they're lying to
That's
you.
right. That's exactly right.
Run. Don't walk. Thanks, Shawn. Thanks so much for doing this. I know your time is really valuable. You could be walking steps.
I could be. But Erwin, I always like having a good conversation with you. So thank you for having me on. This is great.
Thank you for contributing to the education on cyberspace.
You're welcome.
All right, friends, that wraps up another episode of the Truth About Real Estate Investing show for Canadians. Hope you got as much out of this one as I did. Remember that whether you're just starting out or a seasoned investor, there's always something new to learn, and it's always about building that practical knowledge base that gets you closer to financial freedom. If you found value today, please do us a favor and leave us a review or a rating, share this episode with a friend, or better yet, join our community of real estate investors who are taking action and making moves. And hey, if there's a topic you want us to cover, or there's a certain guest you'd like us to have on the show, drop me a line. My DMs are open on social media. Reply to this email that this has arrived on. I'm not hard to find. You know, we're all about giving you the unfiltered truth to help you on your journey. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next episode. Until then, stay smart, stay curious, and keep building that future. Catch you later.